Welcome to Pragati Vichar Literature Festival, Devalina. It is so nice to have you here today. Today we have gathered here for one of a kind 24 hours authors marathon. Debalina Haldar is an alumni of IIM Lucknow. She was shortlisted for the Sahitya Akademi Yuva Puraskar 2020. She writes in the human emotions, coming of age, and family drama genre. Her novel, The Female Ward, was published in October 2012 by Thames River Press. Her second book, Wrinkles in Memory, is a collection of 22 short stories. It was published in August 2016 by Leafy Publications. She received the Critics' Choice Award for her short story by Lame Dreamers in Illuminati 2011. In 2017, her book Wrinkles in Memory was longlisted at the International Young Author Award, Dubai. Welcome, Debalina. Uh, we all know who you are, right? But we really, I personally, and the audience would like to know who the real Debalina is.
First of all, thank you so much for this wonderful introduction. Honestly, if you ask me who the real Debalina is, I try to be as genuine as possible in what I write, most of which are inspired from my own life, because I don't think anything can be completely fictitious. Even if a very tiny bit, the author actually pours that tiny bit of herself or himself also into their literary work. So, and in my case, it's not just a tiny bit; it's a lot of me you would find in my work. So that's who I really am. My books are who I really am.
Okay, so I really would like to know your about your book Wrinkles in Memory, Debalina. Tell us something about it.
So, Wrinkles in Memory is a collection of short stories. It has 22 short stories and written over a very long period of time, and I've been writing since I was very small. And so after my first book got released, I was really wondering what next. And then I thought, why not a collection of short stories? So when I was sitting to, to select the short stories which I've already written, I realized that a lot of those were written uh, a long while back, could be a little dated. Maybe I have changed as a person, so I had to re-look at those. So there was a lot of going back and forth, and then finally
And
combining
changing
them all
it into something which is
changing it into
today.
something which I can relate myself, because we change, right? Everybody changes. And that had to be, like I said, really honest to my own self and my own beliefs. So the stories largely revolve around the theme of reminiscence and nostalgia. You would see the main characters are remembering a lot about their past, or about things that are important to them, significant to them. Um, and uh, the settings of the characters and the settings of the plot of the stories vary around different geographies, different timelines, and that's about it. At the end of the book, you would find the last chapter, which is based out of the poem Upagupta, written by Rabindranath Tagore. And I've kind of tried to give it a fictional touch. How, if that would have been composed as a short story, how would it have looked? So that was my attempt, and that's about it. That's the book all about.
I'm really fascinated right now and really want to read your book, really.
I do hope you like it. Thank you.
Okay. And I just wanted to know what inspired you to write this kind of a book.
No, so novels give you the wide horizon of space and time. You can go from generation to generation, or from past forward, through a huge span of timeline, which short stories cannot afford to give you. But short stories, despite the short length, can be very, very impactful by the kind of words you choose in that short space that has been given to the writer. So that itself is, the idea of that itself is very intriguing and very challenging. You have the challenge of fitting everything in that short space.
Yes.
So you really need to be very careful about what you're choosing, the words you're choosing, and then
And how is
make
it
it into a,
impacting your story also? Yeah.
yes. So everything is very intriguing, challenging, and that momentum has to be kept up throughout your book, through all the stories, as the stories would progress. So that was a project in itself, to make sure that the reader doesn't get bored in between, that through that short span you have to continue the hold of the reader's attention. I think that's nothing less than what a novel entails, but much more intriguing and challenging than that, I would say, for me.
Okay. Thank you so much, Debalina. And I really want to ask one thing, that you have written 22 short stories, right? But is there any short story that is very close to your heart, or relatable in any sense, that it really happened with you? So what is your favorite short story? I would like to know that.
My favorite short story is the first one, which is The Paper Boat. And this is 100% taken from my life. So here is this small child whose grandfather has recently passed away. And she's come to know that she has no idea, small child doesn't know about death and what happened to grandfather, where did he go. So at the end of it, she would write a letter and make it sail in a paper boat. And it's a beautiful reminiscence. I've been told by a lot of people that it brings back their memories of their grandparents. And I think that to me is a successful short story for me, if I can evoke those kinds of feelings in my readers.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. So let's just start with the session called Changes of Human Emotions by Location and Time. So my first question to you, Debalina, is how does the place and the surroundings affect the vibe of a human?
It largely depends upon the place, and not just the place, the kind of people you're surrounded by. So say if I go to London, and as it is, it's a very beautiful place, and you would see the people over there, even though you don't know them, they are very generous with their greetings. And so you have that kind of you're always in a very happy mood, even though you have not had a good day. So the kind of things that you would write over there in, say, a Valentine's park would be, for me at least, it would be different. Like I would talk about my personal journey with Wrinkles in Memory. I was writing a particular story over there in London, and in Valentine's Park, in fact. And that was a kind of a happy story, right? And then I visited a forest. I came back. I travel a lot, so I visited a forest, and I met the tribals over there for the course of one entire day. And the story that came out of me is very surprisingly the story of genocide in Rwanda between the two tribes over there. So I think at least I am very, very easily, you can say, motivated by my surroundings. And I'm sure a lot of writers do, because it's all happening in your mind, in your
Yes.
subconscious, as well as your conscious, more so subconscious. So everything is, at the end of the day, it's stored here. And what comes out on the paper is from here. So it's bound to impact, and the kind of emotions you are feeling at that moment, it's bound to come out on paper.
Okay. And I really want to add one thing that I mean, I personally feel that whenever I'm in a happy mood, right? But when I'm in a surrounding that is negative, it affects my vibe also. I mean, I believe in energy transformation, right? So I
Yes,
feel like surroundings does impact the human being. I really believe in that. Okay.
absolutely.
So, Develina, is it the chaos of the surrounding that affects you more, or is it the inner chaos that keeps you alarmed?
I think
Sometimes.
with, yes, with the inner chaos, you have, um, you 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 have something in your mind, and you're putting it on paper. Okay, that is your inner chaos. You are just pouring everything out. I would, um, I read it somewhere, if your words don't make you cry, your readers also probably won't cry reading your reading your words. So that is your inner chaos you're pouring out. And
Hmm.
I would take it as an advantage if I'm writing a very intense moment in my novel or in my writing, and I'm myself in my personal life, I'm going through something like it. I would take it as an advantage, because then I can actually relate with my protagonists. Now that can be that is the add-on, is if the surrounding is like that. But I think what is important is, like I told you earlier, you have to be emotionally honest to yourself about how you're feeling and what you are pouring out
Yes.
on paper.
Yeah.
That is very important, because
I
you see,
completely.
sometimes I think, I was going through a beautiful book by Tim. I think I have it here. Yeah, by Tim O'Brien. And what he has to say is, there are like story truth, and then there are like happening truth. So story truths are sometimes more true than what has happened to you, because then you consciously put in more effort to make it more sound more true. And that is the emotional honesty you're putting in, not just chaotically, but even if you're happy, the kind of happy emotions you're pouring in, the story truth that comes out of it is sometimes much more happening than, I would say, than the happening truth.
Thank you, Develina. I mean, when I was growing up, I always have had those people, I've always read somewhere, or there's a quote that memory stays forever. Maybe people may not, right? So, what do you think? Do you think that the memory has the power, you know, I mean, do you think the memory has the power to impact an individual for life?
Some memories for sure. My debut novel had actually changed me. I started writing my debut novel in 2010. Um, I went through quite a traumatic experience, and it's all recorded in that book. So that memory, it was not a very good memory, and it still stays with me. So writing the female ward was like proving to the world, and most importantly, proving to myself that, nothing, um, nothing bad truly stays with you if you choose to overcome what you've been through. So it was like the memory was not so good, but with your willpower and with your perseverance, you can rise above those memories. And then after almost 10 years, you look back at what happened and say, yes, I did it. I overcame it. I've shown it. Though the memory stays with you, now it's no longer that bad.
Yeah.
That's about a bad memory.
It no
Happy
longer
memories,
controls you. Yeah.
it no longer controls you. You are no longer that person you were at that point in
Yeah.
time.
Absolutely.
You have kind of made a point that you are much beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that is important, especially for memories which are not so good.
Yeah.
Happy memories always stay with you because people don't, memories do. And I've done this quite a lot of times, especially with my grandmother. A lot of my short stories revolve around her, though not directly, but subconsciously I keep writing about her into my books. So those are the happy memories. But terrible memories, if you have to ask me, the female ward is what comes to my mind. And I wrote it in 2010. I was a debut author then. Now that I look back, I really feel that I was very lucky because I see the struggle of authors getting in touch with publishers. I think I was accepted by Thames River Press within a month of sending out my proposal. So I would say that I was extremely lucky, and who believed in my story, who believed in me, the publisher. And not just that, has helped me understand the intricacies of fiction writing, understand how you pour your thoughts honestly,
Yes.
your memories honestly into paper. And that was actually done by a very close friend, writer friend, Rebecca Lloyd from Bristol. She trained me. I got in touch with her through the publisher who was also publishing her book at
Okay.
that time. So yeah, it was I think all the good things came together at that particular time. I was at the right place at the right time.
At the right
you
time.
know
Yeah.
so that also matters. Luck plays a huge role in how things turn out for you, and how you can like how today I can sit in front of you and say that I turned my memory into something good.
Absolutely. And I'm really proud of you, Evelina. Um, how does nature as an element have such a strong impact on the human body? What do you think, Debalina?
We are at the end of the day product of nature, right? So like uh, I know modernization technology has taken us a bit far, but at the end of it, that's our basic instinct. And personally, when it comes to writing, I've seen I am much more productive after August. That's when it rains, and then autumn, and then
Yes.
winter, and the least productive in summer. So when I look back at your question, I've seen that most of my writing happens during that time. And later on, the administrative stuff, speaking to the editors and looking
Yes.
for publishers, all that happened in the other time. So,
Okay.
you know, uh, so
So
yeah,
I
now that I
can
think
now
about,
assume that you really like autumn or you really like rainy season.
yeah, because you see the falling leaves and the dry leaves and
Correct.
the pleasant, you get cozy, and then you take a
Yes.
cup of coffee, and then you sit to
Yes.
write. So I think that's the most genuine way in today's fast busy life, that we can be close to nature, climate changes. How many of us do have time to go on a retreat for writing? But those of us do, which is now very common, writing retreats are happening all around, would actually know how that helps. That is why writing retreats happen, right? People go to Goa, people go to the Himalayas to, spend peaceful time to write. That is especially important when you write poetry. There was a point when I used to write poetry. I no longer do, but I do have plans to get back there. So when I used to write poetry, I'll tell you, writing novel or writing short stories entails you to be very disciplined. You need to write every day. Don't worry about the first draft, how shitty it is, but you need to write every day. That's what everybody will tell you. Poems don't work like that. It needs to come to you. And it comes to you especially when you are in close connection to nature. Your surroundings are conducive to poetry writing. You cannot force yourself into writing a poem, or for that matter, I would say a very intense short story. It needs to come to you. So, I think, yes, that matters.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Devalina. Though I've not still read your book, but I'm seriously gonna, buy your book, and then I'm just gonna read it in my blanket. That's how you just said right now. My next question is, your book gives us the sense of nostalgic journeys to the readers. So how have these journeys evolved you as a person? Okay,
I'm back. I'm so sorry for this. There was a small. Yeah. So your question was, how has it helped me evolve? Yeah. So when I am writing a particular story or a particular novel, I don't just write. I speak to my characters. The characters speak back to me, and when they don't, then there is a problem. So they speak to me, they evolve, and they help me evolve. When I start writing, I have the basic plot in mind, but I don't have this thing that how my characters are going to evolve, how their characters are going to change, how people are going to change the novel, how they are going to surprisingly speak to somebody which they're not supposed to. So these characters teach me a lot, and sometimes leave me bewildered also. And at the end of the day, I think they help me understand them and understand characters, and help me understand how character building in your writing can be more effectively done, efficiently done. And only with your experience in writing can that happen. So, it's a constant learning process.
Yes.
And your teacher is no one else but
your characters and you.
Your characters.
How you put. Yeah.
Yes. So they, help you evolve. You are learning from them constantly. Sometimes I sit and I'm like, oh my God, I've written this and this character has actually done this, which she was not supposed to do. Yeah. But it absolutely fits over here. Yes. So it was not in my plan, but I keep writing because they are speaking to me. And that is absolutely normal. I feel that's absolutely normal. That's how it should be. That personalization, the personalized relationship you share with your characters.
And also the story that you're writing, right? And the situations that you're in, that your characters are in. It really teaches you.
Absolutely.
Correct. Devalina, how can a person move on from an emotion that is keeping them stuck? And it is a very, very personal question that, sometimes almost everybody nowadays, overthink, right? And I do too. So I really want to ask this question to you, that how can a person move on from an emotion?
This is a very intense question, and it would largely depend upon your situation. But what works for most people I know is you your emotions are your very own. It's your personal thing, you know, you and your emotion. There's no one else in between these two. So what you do is, so that your emotions don't get the better of you, you have to get the better of your emotions. And what you need to do is, first of all, come into agreement. That's the first step. Coming into agreement with your emotions.
That I'm feeling
Be
like
it
this. I'm
anger,
deserving
be it
to feel
hatred,
like
be it
this, right?
jealousy. Yes, be it anger, be it hatred, be it jealousy, be it depression, whatever. You have to first acknowledge that, yes, you have this. And how you acknowledge is up to you. A lot of people would write down, maintain
In
a
the
journal
journal. Yeah.
to someone who is very close to you.
Mm.
And once you have acknowledged it, that's when you try to, overcome it or get the better of it, out of it. And as writers, I think writers have this very strong weapon of writing. Once you have written it down, I personally feel very, very, lighter after I have written things down. But I wouldn't say that this is a 100% foolproof method. Some emotions are often so strong,
Yeah.
that it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
My favorite author, Sylvia Plath, in her book Bell Jar, often talks about, and in fact, that book is a autobiography of
Okay.
Sylvia Plath's life. So if you draw a parallel between her life events and what she has written, is basically this protagonist will try to commit suicide, whereas Sylvia Plath had committed suicide and later on killed herself. And we understand that she had this immense, emotional setback and depression, uh, of not being able to lead the different kinds of lives that she had wanted to, you know um, and in the Bell Jar, she says that she imagines her life as a fig tree, and different branches are having that different fig, and one fig is a married person with a happy family, one fig is a professional. And then, in choosing which one, you're not just choosing, you're letting the other ones go. And as you let the other ones go, you're basically seeing the fig turning black and rotting
Yes.
and dropping down. So that is such a strong emotion which she penned down. But I really don't think that really helped her a lot, because ultimately she killed herself. So I think
There should be a balance, I think.
more than that, I think there should be spending time with yourself is very important.
And I feel like,
Knowing.
to stop living in denial also, that, that it is not happening.
And but yes, but today, with so much of social media around,
Yeah.
there's so much of virtual life and so much of fake and so much of
And so much of toxic
people.
positivity also, right?
Why are we talking about positivity all of a sudden? Because there
Yeah.
is so much of negativity. So
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is you have to protect yourself,
Yes.
and protect yourself from what is going on around. Like, we are not in a competition, right? Your own competitor, you should be your own competitor. I think that's what I have learned from my life. This is my biggest takeaway, I would say. And emotions, what can I say? I think we as writers need to write them out. And believe me, when you write your emotions and make your tears drop on paper, that's the best kind of writing that you have written. That's the best that happens to you. I think I want to quote this over here by Tom O'Brien. In his book, he writes how this, writing your emotions out on paper is so important for authors. to keep in mind. So like I was saying, there was this happening truth and story truth. So he says that here is the happening truth. I was once a soldier. There were many bodies, real bodies with real faces, but I was young then and I was afraid to look. And now 20 years later, I'm left with faceless responsibility and faceless grief. That he poured down that day, okay, on paper. And later on, when he edited it, that became the story truth, which is he was a slim, dead, almost dainty young man of about 20. He lay in the center of a red clay trail near the village. His jaw was in his throat. His one eye was shut. The other eye was a star-shaped hole. I killed him. You see the impact he's put, because he's poured it all on paper.
Yes.
Right? And it kind of gives you your stomach and your guts,
Yeah.
they kind of clench when you
It is spine chilling, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
And I really want to read this book. What are you reading right now?
This is it's not a book. It's it was a quote by Tim O'Brien, but his books are all there, and he's an amazing writer. But I think when we read about his life, he kind of always held that, emotional honesty, writing it with emotional honesty is absolute must, and for authors. And I have always gone by this biblical truth for me. It's very important. And if it's not with emotional honesty, I don't know with what should people write. That's the only thing you can do for your readers. Yeah, that's the only thing you can do for your readers as writers. At least be emotionally honest to them.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Devalina. It was such an enlightening session. To be very honest, you told me that you really learn from your characters, but I really want to say that I really learned from you, right? In this session. And I really want to, apply those things that you've taught in my daily life, just to make it easy. And the one thing that really that will stay with me, that you are the only competitor of yourself. There's no one in your life that you should be competing with, right? And it was such an enlightening session. I hope you enjoyed it, Devalina.
Thank you for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did not expect, these kinds of questions. When I had come, I was like completely unprepared. What am I going to say? But the way you carried the conversation, one after the other, it actually, came together very well.
That is what honesty is, Devalina. You are honest, right? Yeah. So thank you so much, Devalina.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.